Throughout the history of the Plants vs. Zombies franchise, there's been a lot of discontinued and completely cancelled Plants vs. Zombies games. And I'm going to be starting off with the more well-known ones, but by the end of the video, some of these games are extremely obscure and barely anyone knows about them. So yeah, let's start off with a very well-known one, being Plants vs. Zombies Adventures. Now, this game was released back in 2013, very close to when Plants vs. Zombies 2 was released. And while the fact that it was released so close to the release of Plants vs. Zombies 2 was also sort of the reason why this game died in the first place. As well, literally only a year and a half after the game first released, it got shut down on October 12th of 2014. So what went wrong with this game? Well, first off, you could only play it on Facebook Games, as well that's literally the only way that you could ever play this game, as well it wasn't on the App Store or anything. Which already greatly limited the amount of people that could play this game, as well a lot less people would know about it when compared to it being on the App Store. And while not a lot of people even knew about this game, mainly just because PopCap was too busy promoting Plants vs. Zombies 2, and this game was sort of just forgotten about, mainly just because Plants vs. Zombies 2 was so successful that they mainly just focused on updating that game, and they basically completely stopped updating Plants vs. Zombies Adventures only a few months after releasing it. So yeah, honestly, I feel like if this game was released at a completely different time, way after or way before Plants vs. Zombies 2, it would have had a much higher chance of actually succeeding. Now next we have a pretty strange one, being Plants vs. Zombies Match, which is a very Candy Crush-like game where you combine stuff together to kill the zombies. And while it's a pretty bad game, it's literally just a copy of basically every single other matching game on the App Store, but you have to strategically combine the plants together so you're able to kill the zombies, though it's kind of ruining the whole point of it because you have an infinite amount of tries. Which basically makes it impossible to lose any level, as well you can play the level infinitely until you beat it. And while very similarly to Plants vs. Zombies 3, it was first released back in 2021, but very shortly after got completely taken off the App Store. And while it took another 2 years until May 24th, 2023 to re-release the game on the App Store, but very shortly after that it once again got taken off of the App Store, but if you manage to download the game in that small time radius, you're somehow able to still play it. So even though you're technically able to still play this game, if you downloaded it when the game was still available, it's basically fully discontinued at this point, as well they basically scrapped the entire game. Now next we have a relatively obscure one, being Your Brains Edu, which is an educational Plants vs. Zombies game that I made a whole video about not too long ago. And while this is basically just a very shortened version of Plants vs. Zombies 2, as well you could only play the first 3 worlds, and the only way that you could ever play this game is that you went to Florida State University back in 2015. As well, outside of Florida State University, you literally couldn't play this game at all, as well it's not like you could download it on the App Store or anything, so that's sort of the reason why it got discontinued, as well it was literally only one place that you could play this game in the entire world. So yeah, from what I could tell, there's only 5 videos in the entire world that ever even show this game's gameplay, and it's literally just Plants vs. Zombies 2. Now next we have Plants vs. Zombies Endless Edition that was released back in 2013 and got discontinued in around early 2015. And while this game was actually drastically different than the normal Plants vs. Zombies one, as well it had a bunch of brand new worlds, and even had hero plants in the game, which were extremely overpowered versions of the normal plants that basically had infinite health and they really couldn't die. They also had a bunch of special abilities and everything, and they were extremely overpowered, and they even had some Plants vs. Zombies 2 plants in the game. As well, since this game was being actively updated, during the release of Plants vs. Zombies 2, they ended up releasing a bunch of PvZ 2 plants into this game. And while since this game is in Plants vs. Zombies 1 art style, it means that all these PvZ 2 plants are actually turned into Plants vs. Zombies 1 art style, and they end up looking really strange. And while overall this is a pretty interesting game, and even though it was discontinued all the way back in 2015, you're still able to play because there are some APKs out there that still have the full game downloaded onto them. And well, next we have Plants vs. Zombies Great Wall Edition, which is basically just a retextured version of Plants vs. Zombies 1. As well, basically every single zombie in the game isn't unique at all, as well as literally just the normal zombies from Plants vs. Zombies 1, except that they're all themed to be part of the Great Wall version. Though there are a few unique zombies out there, there's also a new plant being the Future Star. And while the Future Star was actually a promotional plant that was added into the game to promote a milk company, which is pretty interesting. And well, once again, just like Plants vs. Zombies Endless Edition, even though this game is completely discontinued, you can still find places to play it. And well, next we have Plants vs. Zombies Social Edition, which is definitely the most obscure out of these 3 Plants vs. Zombies 1 Chinese games. And well, even though this game was around for 3 years, which is longer than the last 2 games that we looked at, it's still completely lost and there's barely any footage of it on the entire internet. And well, in this game, there's actually a lot of promotional plants as well. We have the Super Chomper, the Chuck, and also the Future Star that was in Plants vs. Zombies Great Wall Edition. And while this game is also very heavily based on an online mode, as well you could play this game online and compete against people to get more points from doing certain things. So overall, this is a pretty interesting game, and I'm honestly quite sad that you can't really play this game anymore. And well, next we have the Plants vs. Zombies AR trading card game. As well, in China, they released these Plants vs. Zombies trading cards that you could actually collect by buying these booster boxes, and then you could unbox them and use these cards in an actual game. And while this game is overall pretty interesting, and there's actually a good amount of footage of it on YouTube that you could find, and well, it seems to be a pretty cool game. As well, all of the cards and everything have different values to them, though you can't really read them or anything unless that you speak Chinese, so I can't really tell you what any of these cards actually do. But yeah, you could actually still buy these trading cards to this day, though the AR trading card game hasn't been updated in years and is basically fully discontinued at this point. And well, I'm pretty sure the reason why it's basically fully discontinued is that they just weren't popular enough. As of honestly, these cards were never really heavily advertised that much, and they're overall pretty obscure. So yeah, even though they are pretty obscure, it's still a very interesting thing, and it's also really cool that they made 3D models to put on top of the cards. Even though they look really bad, it's still pretty cool looking. And well, next we have Plants vs. Zombies Pinion Adventures, which is another educational Plants vs. Zombies game. And well, this game is simply meant to just teach you Pinion, and overall is really obscure. As well, since this game was completely exclusive to China and only existed for a few years, there's barely any footage of it, and the only footage that you could find are on really obscure Chinese websites. And while most of the footage is just really low quality and everything, and it's overall just not a lot of information about this game that's on the internet at all. As well, we don't even really know how many full levels there are, as well there are a few levels that are documented, though we don't really know the total amount of them, and there's really no way of knowing because this game has been completely discontinued and there's barely any information about it at all. And well, since there's really no archives of the game out there, this game will most likely be lost forever, though it is pretty interesting that they even made it in the first place. Now next we have Plants vs. Zombies Online, which is actually around for a total of 4 years. As well, this game actually didn't get discontinued until 2018, and you're also able to still somewhat play this game, though it's very hard to find. As well, the actual game by itself, you can still technically play it, though none of the levels actually work, and you have to go out of your way to individually download all the levels. And well, since basically all of these levels are just exclusive to some of these Chinese websites, they're really hard to download, and a lot of the times you'll just end up downloading Chinese viruses that'll be very hard to get rid of. So technically it is possible to fully restore this game, though it's really not worth it. But yeah, this actual game's pretty unique. It has a lot of the normal worlds that are in Plants vs. Zombies 2, though there is an underwater world and there's a ton of exclusive plants. And while a lot of these plants are actually pretty interesting, especially some in the RPG game mode, though sadly there's not a lot of information about some of these plants, mainly just because we don't have any footage of them. And while the RPG game mode is actually pretty cool, there's a lot of different levels where you use your plants to attack the zombies. You could also give your plants costumes, which will make them more powerful, and you could also level them up. So it's overall a pretty interesting idea, and they actually made an entire Plants vs. Zombies RPG game, being Plants vs. Zombies Allst Stars. And well, this is an RPG version of Plants vs. Zombies that was around for 6 years, and to this day you can still find some archives of the game that you could play. And while this game actually has a bunch of brand new plants, as well, since every plant has 3 evolutions besides a few of them, there's actually a ton of new plants in this game, including some like the cattail line that has the new dogtail and the foxtail. So it's overall really unique, and it's honestly kind of a shame that the majority of these plants have never been in any other Plants vs. Zombies games, and they'll most likely never be seen again. And while there's also a bunch of unique worlds in this game, including a bunch of unique zombies, and some of these levels actually get very difficult, and while there's also some boss fights and everything, so overall it's a really good game that was updated for a really long time, and it's honestly very surprising that they discontinued it, as well from what I could tell it was pretty popular. Now next we have Plants vs Zombies Kingdom, which once again is a Chinese version of Plants vs Zombies 1, except this time is medieval themed. Though unlike the other versions of Plants vs Zombies 1 that are in Chinese that actually got released but then got cancelled later on, this one actually never got released at all. As though the only proof that this game was ever meant to be made is some concept art that included some of these weird plants and some of these weird zombies. And well, honestly, most of these plants look really normal, some of them look really strange, but there's also a chomper with eyes for some reason. And well, to my knowledge, this is the only official time that Chomper has ever been seen with eyes, as though every other time has been unofficial, like with this plush. So there's only one piece of official Plants vs Zombies artwork showing Chomper with eyes, which is just really strange. So yeah, the only things that we really know about this game is that there was supposed to be a Lunar New Year world based off of these zombies, and there was also supposed to be a circus also based off of these zombies. There was also supposed to be a Japanese and a Korean world in this game based off these zombies once again, so the majority of the artwork that we have is just zombies and not too many plants. So yeah, it seems that this game was cancelled very early on into development, as well as seems to only have been around for a couple months, and then it got replaced by other games like Plants vs Zombies Social Edition and also Plants vs Zombies Great Wall Edition. Now the next game is actually a really strange one, being Plants vs Zombies Centent Edition. Now this was a version of Plants vs Zombies 2 that was actually an online version ran by the company Tencent. And while this game was really never updated, as well the most worlds it ever has was only 3 worlds and was only around for a few years, and the only gimmick to it is that it was an online game that you could compete with your friends. So because of it literally just being Plants vs Zombies 2 but just with less worlds, they ended up just completely getting rid of this game, as though there was really no point of having it besides the online mode. So yeah, after a few years of literally not getting any updates at all, they ended up just completely shutting down the game, mainly just because it basically had no players and there's basically no footage of this game besides the actual trailer of it. And well, next we probably have the strangest Plants vs Zombies app that was ever made, being Mr. Zombies called Jamesio. Now if you don't know, Plants vs Zombies Allst Stars a while ago had a collab with someone that was famous, and they ended up making some merchandise for it, and they also added him into a game. Though for whatever reason in China there was an exclusive mobile app where you could actually use this app, and the only thing that it did is spawn in a weird 3D model of him for some reason. And while I barely even count this as a Plants vs Zombies game, as well it literally has nothing to do with Plants vs Zombies except for the fact that it was basically just a promotional thing for Plants vs Zombies Allst Stars. So yeah, I have no idea why this app ever existed, as well it was just meant to be a promotional thing, and it's just really strange, and there's barely any footage of it out there at all. And well, the final game that I want to go over is a cancelled Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare game where the plants were actually guns. Now, I only have one piece of artwork for this, and while based off of what we can see, there seems to be a Doomshroom rocket launcher, a repeater gun, and a snow pea gun. There's also a cactus gun and a gargantua at the bottom of it, but besides that, this is the only artwork that we have for this game, and it was cancelled very early on into development. Though it is really interesting that at one point, Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare, instead of having the plants actually attacking each other, you would control the plants by having them be guns. So yeah, these are just really strange and very early on pieces of Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare development. But yeah, those were all the cancelled and discontinued Plants vs Zombies games. Comment down below if you could bring back one of these games, which one would it be? And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please like and subscribe, and have a great day.